3:22 a.m. Strait of Hormuz, Western Approach Corridor. An Iranian vessel just dropped a mine directly into the path of the U.S. Fifth Fleet's primary transit route. Not one mine, 18. Spread across a 4-nautical-mile corridor that 3 American warships were scheduled to enter in less than 2 hours. Welcome to Navy Powerline, where we break down the operations that define the balance of global naval power. What you are about to hear is a reconstruction based on documented Iranian naval mine doctrine, real U.S. Navy mine countermeasure protocols, and Fifth Fleet operational assessments of the Hormuz mining threat. Iran has mined these waters before. During the tanker war of the 1980s, Iranian mines damaged the USS Samuel B. Roberts and severely wounded 10 American sailors. The doctrine, the weapons, and the command decisions in this scenario reflect capabilities that both sides have studied, war-gamed, and prepared for across 4 decades. Naval mines are one of the most cost-effective weapons in existence. A single mine costs between $10,000 and $100,000 to produce. A warship costs billions. The ratio is catastrophic. It is why the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, with defined shipping lanes that concentrate traffic into predictable corridors, has always been Iran's most dangerous asymmetric card. Let's go back to 3:22 a.m. The vessel that laid the mines was not a warship. It was a dhow, a traditional wooden-hulled trading vessel common throughout the Persian Gulf, operating under no national flag, with no military markings, running without navigation lights in the pre-dawn darkness. It had departed a small harbor on the Iranian coastline near Bandar Abbas approximately 3 hours earlier. Its manifest, if anyone had thought to inspect it, listed fishing equipment and commercial cargo. It was carrying IRCM-02 class contact mines. Each mine weighed approximately 250 kilograms, contained roughly 100 kilograms of high explosive, and was equipped with both contact detonation horns and an optional influence fuse, sensitive to the acoustic and magnetic signatures of large steel-hulled vessels. The mine-laying operation had been planned to exploit a specific gap in Fifth Fleet maritime surveillance coverage. The gap was not an accident of geography. It was a known limitation in the patrol pattern of the MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, assigned to maritime surveillance in the Western Hormuz Approach Corridor. Between approximately 2:45 a.m. and 4:15 a.m. local time, the helicopter patrol rotation produced a 90-minute window in which the coverage of the Western Channel was reduced to passive radar monitoring only. No active sonar sweeps, no low-altitude visual surveillance, no thermal imaging passes. The IRGCN had documented this window over approximately 6 weeks of observation. The dhow had been specifically scheduled to transit during that window. At 3:19 a.m., an MQ-9 Reaper unmanned aircraft assigned to Fifth Fleet maritime surveillance operations detected the dhow on its infrared sensor while conducting a standard route reconnaissance pass at 15,000 feet. The contact was logged as a commercial vessel transiting the Western Corridor. Not unusual, not alarming, consistent with the dozens of fishing and trading dhows that operated in the area every night. The Reaper operator at the ground control station noted that the vessel was stationary for approximately 4 minutes while the Reaper was overhead. Stationary in a shipping lane at 3:19 a.m., not at anchor, engines running, but not moving. The operator flagged the contact as anomalous and submitted a note to the Fifth Fleet watch officer. The note was queued for review. It was not immediately routed to the Surface Action Group that was 2 hours from entering that corridor. This is how mine-laying operations survive surveillance. Not by being invisible, by being just ambiguous enough that the system absorbs the signal without acting on it. The gap is not always in the radar. Sometimes it is in the decision chain between an operator flagging an anomaly and a commander receiving a warning in time to act. At 3:41 a.m., a different operator reviewed the Reaper footage from the 3:19 observation and noticed something the first operator had not flagged. During the 4 minutes the dhow was stationary, its stern had been lower in the water during the approach than it was when it departed the stationary position. The vessel had gotten lighter while it was stopped. It had dropped cargo. The operator escalated immediately. The watch officer at Fifth Fleet received the assessment at 3:44 a.m. The Surface Action Group, USS Hughes City, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, and USS Laboon, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, was currently 47 nautical miles west of the suspected minefield, making approximately 16 knots toward the strait entrance. At 16 knots, they would enter the suspected mine corridor in approximately 2 hours and 44 minutes. The message to USS Hughes City went out at 3:46 a.m. The commanding officer of USS Hughes City, Captain Maria Ellsworth, received the mine warning at 3:47 a.m. She had two immediate decisions to make, and very limited information with which to make them. First decision: stop the group's approach. Diverting two warships from a scheduled transit carries operational consequences. It disrupts coordination with partner forces in the Gulf, it signals to Iran that the surveillance had worked, and it leaves the Western Corridor unpatrolled during a period when the IRGCN may be planning follow-on operations. Against those considerations, the alternative is sailing $2 billion warships and their combined crews of approximately 700 personnel into a field of mines. She stopped the group at 3:49 a.m. and requested mine countermeasure support from 5th Fleet. Second decision: what to do about the mine-laying vessel. The Dow had resumed transit after the mine laying and was now moving northeast. It had been in international waters when the mines were laid. It was still in international waters. Under international law, laying mines in international shipping lanes in peacetime is a violation of UNCLOS provisions that have been clear since 1982. But international law requires confirmation before a response. The Reaper footage showed suspicious behavior. It did not definitively confirm mine laying. Captain Ellsworth requested a positive identification pass on the Dow from the Reaper at 3:50 a.m. At 3:55 a.m., the Reaper descended to 3,000 feet and conducted a detailed thermal imaging and optical pass on the Dow. The analysis came back within 4 minutes. The vessel's stern deck showed rectangular marks consistent with the footprint of naval mine storage cradles. The crane mounted at the stern, which would typically be used to lower fishing equipment, showed heat signatures consistent with recent mechanical use. And in the water behind the vessel's previous stationary position, the Reaper's synthetic aperture radar had resolved 3 subsurface contacts at depths consistent with mines that had not yet settled to the bottom. 3 confirmed mines visible from the air. 18 estimated based on the vessel's departure weight compared to current weight differential assessed through waterline observation. This was not ambiguous. At 4:08 a.m., 5th Fleet Commander authorized 2 responses simultaneously. First, 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters from USS Hughes City would launch immediately to begin mine neutralization operations using the AN/AQS-22 Airborne Laser Mine Detection System and Mk-104 Mod 0 acoustic mine countermeasure gear. Second, 2 FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA-211, the Fighting Checkmates, operating from USS Carl Vinson approximately 200 nautical miles to the south, would be tasked against the mine-laying vessel under authority of self-defense and protection of freedom of navigation. The mine-laying Dow had closed to approximately 14 nautical miles inside Iranian coastal waters by 4:11 a.m. when the FA-18S received their tasking. Iranian coastal waters. The target was no longer in international waters. This was the complication that 5th Fleet had not anticipated when the authorization went out. And it created a decision point that could not be resolved at the ship or squadron level. The flight lead, callsign Falcon 1, Lieutenant Commander James Kowalski, received the tasking and the coordinates simultaneously. He immediately identified the coastal waters problem. He transmitted back to 5th Fleet at 4:13 a.m. Target is inside Iranian territorial waters at this time. Request clarification of ROE authority. 5th Fleet could not unilaterally authorize a strike inside Iranian territorial waters. That authority sat with CENTCOM at a minimum, and potentially required national command authority depending on the escalatory assessment. The mine-laying vessel continued northeast. Every minute it moved, it went deeper into Iranian protected waters. At 4:17 a.m., the window to engage the vessel in international waters, or just inside the 12 nautical mile boundary, had closed entirely. The Dow was now 8 nautical miles inside Iranian territorial waters and still moving. The authorization did not come. Falcon 1 held his weapons and established a surveillance orbit. This is the moment in the Hormuz mine-laying scenario that every wargame eventually reaches. The attacker uses international boundaries as a shield. The mine layer transits to the edge of international waters, executes the operation, and then retreats to sovereignty before the defender can organize a response. The mines stay. The vessel is protected. The FA-18S returned to USS Carl Vinson without firing. The mine threat remained. Now the clock changed direction. Instead of a strike mission, the entire weight of the response shifted to the MH-60R crews conducting mine clearance operations in the Western Hormuz corridor. The two Seahawks had launched from USS Hughes City at 4:10 a.m. and were on station over the suspected minefield by 4:28 a.m. The AN/AQS-22 system uses a towed sensor body, lowered from the helicopter to approximately 3 meters above the water surface, equipped with a forward-looking laser and imaging sonar that can detect mine-like objects down to approximately 40 meters depth. The system can survey approximately 2 nautical miles of corridor per hour under standard operating conditions. The minefield was estimated to span 4 nautical miles, 2 hours minimum to survey the full corridor. Longer if the mines had been laid with sophisticated spacing designed to complicate clearance. The Surface Action Group sat and waited 47 miles to the west. At 5:14 a.m., the first Seahawk reported positive mine contacts, 7 confirmed mines in the first nautical mile of corridor. The mines had settled to depths between 8 and 22 meters. Some were bottom mines, lying on the seabed, detonating when influenced by the acoustic and magnetic signatures of a passing ship. Others were moored mines, suspended at specific depths in the water column by anchor cables. The moored mines were the immediate priority. A bottom mine requires a large displacement vessel passing directly overhead to trigger. A moored mine detonates on contact with any hull, warship, tanker, or dhow that passes within arm's length. The Seahawk crews called for the dedicated mine countermeasure vessel that 5th Fleet had on standby. The USS Pioneer, an Avenger-class MCM ship based in Bahrain, capable of deploying AN/SQQ-32 sonar systems and remote-controlled mine neutralization vehicles. Pioneer was underway from Bahrain at 4:51 a.m., already dispatched when the mine warning came through. Transit time to the Western Hormuz corridor, approximately 3 hours and 20 minutes. The corridor would not be cleared before dawn. At 6:35 a.m., as daylight came up over the strait, a commercial tanker, the MV Alara Star, a Liberian-flagged VLCC carrying 250,000 tons of crude oil, detected the maritime warning broadcast that 5th Fleet had transmitted on Channel 16, VI-HF, at 5:40 a.m., and came to a stop 12 nautical miles west of the minefield. Within 90 minutes, 7 more commercial vessels had stopped or altered course based on the warning. By 8 a.m., the western approach corridor to the Strait of Hormuz was effectively closed to commercial traffic. The mine-laying dhow had not sunk a single ship. It had not fired a single round. It had stopped 20% of the world's daily oil supply, with 18 mines costing approximately $1.8 million. The economic impact of a 6-hour closure of the Hormuz Western Corridor hit the oil markets when they opened. Brent crude rose $4.70 per barrel in the first hour of trading. USS Pioneer arrived on station at 8:11 a.m. and began systematic clearance operations. The Reaper continued its surveillance pattern overhead. 2 FA-18S remained on CAP at Angels 20, watching the Iranian coastline. By 14:30 p.m., USS Pioneer had neutralized or recovered 14 of the 18 mines. The remaining 4 had drifted with the current to positions further south, requiring additional search operations that would not complete until the following morning. The Western Corridor reopened to commercial traffic at 17:45 p.m., 14 hours and 23 minutes after the first mine was laid. No ship was sunk, no sailor was killed, no mine detonated. But the after-action assessment at 5th Fleet was not a record of success. It was a record of how close success had come to something else. The Reaper operator's first anomaly flag, filed at 3:21 a.m. and queued for review instead of immediately escalated, had been the critical delay point. If the note had reached the Surface Action Group watch officer at 3:25 a.m. instead of 3:44 a.m., USS Hughes City would have had an additional 19 minutes to close the distance, and the FA-18S would have had a window to engage the mine-laying vessel while it was still in international waters. 19 minutes. That is what the organizational gap between an operator flagging an anomaly and a commander acting on it had cost. The dhow was never identified with certainty. The crew had departed the vessel inside Iranian waters before dawn and were never located. The dhow itself was found abandoned in a fishing harbor near Bandar Abbas 4 days later. No evidence was recovered from the hull that survived the operational cleanup. The IRGCN issued no statement. The Iranian Foreign Ministry denied all knowledge of the incident. The United Nations Security Council session called at American request produced no resolution. Russia and China blocked it. But the imagery evidence presented by the U.S. ambassador was detailed enough that no serious analyst doubted what had happened. The minefield operation had cost Iran approximately $2 million in hardware, one wooden dhow, and some diplomatic credibility in forums where it already had little. In exchange, Iran had stopped the Strait of Hormuz for 14 hours, caused a $4.70 per barrel oil price spike, demonstrated to every shipping company in the world that the Western Hormuz corridor was not safe without American mine clearance capability on station, and shown the IRGCN and its customers that the tactic worked. The next dhow that transits the Western Hormuz corridor at night is going to be followed by an MH-60R from the moment it leaves the Iranian coast. That change to the patrol pattern was implemented fleet-wide within 2 weeks of the engagement. The gap that the IRGCN had exploited for 6 weeks of observation was closed. But gaps do not stay closed forever. The IRGCN has mapped every American patrol pattern in the Gulf. They will find the next gap. They will take their time. They will wait until the window opens again. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. 18 mines fit in 4 nautical miles of that corridor. That math does not change. There is something uniquely effective about the naval mine as a weapon of pressure that goes beyond its destructive potential. A mine that never detonates still does its job. The moment a minefield is confirmed in a critical transit corridor, the entire logic of that corridor changes. Ships stopped. Tankers anchor and wait. Insurance rates spike overnight. Shipping companies begin routing calculations around the threat zone, adding thousands of miles and millions of dollars in fuel costs to journeys that had previously passed through in hours. The USS Samuel B. Roberts learned this lesson in 1988, when an Iranian mine nearly sank her in these same waters. The explosion blew a 25-foot hole in the hull, flooded 3 compartments, and wounded 10 sailors. The ship survived only because of extraordinary damage control. The mine that nearly killed her had cost Iran approximately $1,500 to manufacture. The Roberts cost $280 million to build. That ratio has not changed in 4 decades. In the days following the mine-laying operation, Fifth Fleet convened an assessment that went beyond tactics. The questions were harder than what went wrong. They asked what the IRGCN had learned that would make the next operation more effective. The analysis produced 3 conclusions. First, the Dow disguise had worked completely. No U.S. intelligence asset had identified the vessel as a mine layer before it began its operation. Future operations would likely use the same cover, possibly with more sophisticated countermeasures to defeat aerial thermal surveillance. Second, the retreat to sovereignty tactic had been deliberately planned to the minute. The mine layer had not crossed back into Iranian territorial waters by accident or panic. The timing was exact. The vessel reached the 12 nautical mile limit at the precise moment when F/A-18S had been tasked, but the authorization chain had not resolved. The IRGCN had specifically timed the operation to exploit the gap between American detection and American legal authority to respond. Third, the economic impact had exceeded the military impact by a significant margin. Iran had spent approximately $2 million total on the operation. The economic disruption to global oil markets during the 14-hour closure was estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The mine is not just a weapon, it is a message, written in economics and uncertainty, sent to every tanker captain, every shipping executive, every oil market trader who watched Brent crude move $4.70 in a single hour on a Tuesday morning. The message says, this corridor is not safe unless we decide it is safe. The U.S. Navy's counter-argument, mine clearance, corridor certification, escort operations, continuous patrol, says, we will clear every mine, reopen every lane, and not allow this waterway to be closed. That argument has been ongoing since 1987. It will not be resolved by one clearance operation. The USS Pioneer certified the full corridor clear at 9:47 a.m. the following morning, 30 hours after the first mine had been laid. All 18 mines were accounted for. The 11 commercial vessels that had been holding outside the warning zone began their transit under Fifth Fleet escort, 3 at a time. The MV Alara Star went first. Her captain, a Danish national with 31 years of sea service, said in a later interview that the 30-hour wait had been the most professionally unsettling experience of his career. He noted that the last time he had held station outside a mine warning zone had been 1991, in a different strait, during a different war. The waterway has a long memory. Stay vigilant, stay informed. See you in the next one.